about encountering Jesus, and how when we encounter Jesus, it has a transforming effect on us. It changes some people. And the reason I say some people is because in these different experiences, you'll see a lot of times one person is radically changed. Somebody else, little or no difference. Why the difference? How come? How come? They're hearing the same thing. They're seeing the same thing. But some people are being changed and some aren't. And we'll see a different reason in each one of these encounters. But let's look at this encounter. It's one of the most famous ones. It's Peter walking on the water and Jesus walking on the water. And so let's see what happens with this encounter today. And my prayer for you is that each of us will respond to this full of joy and eagerness as we watch God change lives right before us. So listen to these words of Scripture in Matthew 14. This is God's inerrant, infallible, and all-sufficient word. Beginning in verse 22. Immediately after this, let me explain the context, Jesus has just fed the 5,000. And it's 5,000 men, and so we know when there are 5,000 men, there are 5,000 women, and at least a couple of kids. And so there's probably 20,000. But we know from John, this miracle is in 3 of the 4 Gospels. It isn't in Luke, but it's in the other 3. And John explains what's going on and why the context is so important. He just fed all these people. 20,000 is my guess that he's fed. They want to make him king. And they've said that. They said that we want to make you king. Jesus does not want to become king. You are king. You know, when you vote in our country, in our system of government, you're king, and that you make choices every time you go to the ballot box. But Jesus is interested in a relationship. That's what he's working on. Making a way, opening up a door for you to have a relationship with God. That's his purpose. That's the focus. The miracles are simply ways that he invites you to have a relationship with him and says it's worthwhile knowing him. And so that's the context. And so this is immediately after feeding the 5,000. Jesus insisted that his disciples get back. The word also means compelled. He wants them out of there. My guess is that they didn't have the highest maturity level. They might be joining in with the crowd. He already had one of them, Simon the Zealot, was with him, so he's already a revolutionary. Judas would have been for it. So he wants to get them out of there. Let me take care of the crowd. You guys get out of here. Take a little simple 2-hour little trip up north to Bethsaida. So he insisted the disciples get in the boat and cross to the other side of the lake. They're going to go from the east side up to the north side, where he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Several times in the gospel, Jesus would go and give alone. And let me ask you a question. Are you busier than Jesus? Jesus had 3 years to do his whole ministry. Are you too busy to begin the day being alone with him? Are you too busy to get off by yourself and seek him? Jesus was able to do that. Jesus found time to get by himself to prayer. If you're busier than Jesus, you're too busy. Get that special time. We love to call it the golden hour, where you're alone with God and you're hearing from him, you're receiving, you're being built up so that you can go out and minister to other people all day long because you have been built up. So after sending them, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from the land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. That word heavy is the word mega, from which we get our word mega, big, huge. So these were mega waves, if you will. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they said, "It's a ghost." And that word is phantomos, from which we get our word phantom. So they're saying, this is a phantom. This is a demon of some kind that's coming to get us in the middle of this storm. But Jesus spoke to them at once and said, don't be afraid. He said, take courage, I am here. That don't be afraid, 400 times in the Bible, it says don't be afraid. If it's said once, it's important. If it's said twice, it's really, really important. What is it when it's 400 times that it says that in the Bible? Don't be afraid. Take courage, I am here. Then Peter called him, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, Lord, he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. You have so little faith, Jesus said. Why did you doubt me? When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshipped him. You really are the Son of God, they exclaimed. This is the word of the Lord. Some of you enjoy fishing. We talked about that last week and throughout the week. And I want to share with you about the greatest, possibly arguably the greatest fishing area in the world is the Bering Sea. And something about the extreme weather and the currents and the way the shelves go, it's perfect for producing the, what is it the whales eat? Plankton. It's perfect for plankton development. So 450 different kinds of fish are up in that region. It's $1 billion business just for the U.S. Half of our fish, half of our shell food come from the Bering Sea. That's half of it right there. Again, billions of dollars. All the other countries are out there fishing as well. But there's one little trade-off. You know, it's a great place to fish, but there's this thing called weather. Have you heard of that before? And weather shows up at that area, and they have terrible, terrible high seas and storms that go through. So about 20 years ago or so, a fishing boat was out there pulling in the fish like mad, having a great time, and all of a sudden a huge storm comes up, and they start taking on water. And fortunately, they got into their storm suits, getting ready so in case they fell in the water, and they called out on the radio and said, we've got a problem, we're taking on water. And so the distress signal went out, but then the boat sank, and the crew were all out in their orange suits, and they try to lock arms together to stay together, but the waves are so strong, it blows them apart, and they start floating in different directions, each one of them floating away. They're trying to catch up with each other. They can't even see because the waves are so high. And so there was one Christian among the whole crew, and he began to pray. And meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, another Christian knelt down in prayer. And I'll get right back to that story, but let me ask you a question. First, how do I know if I'm in a storm? And I've told you about many storms I've had over the years where I thought I was going to lose everything. I was so devastated I couldn't even pray, and other people had to pray for me to get me through that storm. But what are the characteristics of the storm? This passage is going to show us. If you have your outlines, look on the right-hand side, and you'll see the 5 characteristics of knowing I'm in a storm. I'm in a storm, when I can't see my way. It says it was dark outside. By the way, just a funny thing for this region. The word dark is Scotia. And that's what that means. That Scotia means that in the Greek. Now, Scotia here is a Latin word. It was a Scottish guy, and the Latin word Scotia means Scotland. And so that's what the village of Scotia is named after. But just an interesting thing for this area. But anyway, they are in darkness. I don't know if you've ever been in complete darkness before, but They didn't have lighthouses with light shining. They didn't have lights along the shore and floodlights. It is dark. And I don't know if you've ever been in the dark and in a storm in the water, but it is absolutely terrifying. When you have these big waves. When I was in 4th grade, we went to Austria and lived in Austria for 2 years. And on the ship, we went out on a great big cruise ship, and we hit a storm in the North Atlantic. Now, this is a big ship, a great big ship, and it's being tossed around like a cork, and I couldn't believe it. I thought I was a pretty good swimmer, but I looked out that window at those huge waves and said, I wouldn't last 5 minutes out there, let alone make it back. Well, here are the fishermen in a much smaller craft, and they're bouncing around because the Sea of Galilee is the lowest freshwater lake in the world. It's the second of all lakes. The Dead Sea is actually lower, but of fresh water, the Sea of Galilee is lowest. It's 700 feet below sea level. Right next to it is the Golan Heights. Have you heard about that with the fighting over in Israel? The Golan Heights are 9,300 feet. So here you have 9,300 feet cold air coming down, and here it is. It's warm, it's hot, it's 700 feet below sea level. And so the winds come in, the cold winds hit the warm air there, and they're just violent storms on the Sea of Galilee. And it's dark, and so here are these big waves crashing over the top of them. If you can't see your way, you're in a storm. When you look up and go, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know what to do. You're in a storm. That qualifies. B, if I feel like I'm on my own. Here it says in John, this story, John 6:17, Jesus had not joined them. Have you ever felt like I'm in a storm and Jesus is taking his good old time and is not there yet? And I'm out here slugging it out by myself. And anytime you want to show up now, I'd be very grateful, be very happy for you to come. But it feels like that. If you feel like you're on your own right now and you're kind of slugging it out, trying to make it, you're in a storm. You can be assured you are absolutely in a storm. Also, when I'm out of my comfort zone, the boat was in the middle of the lake. It wasn't supposed to be in the middle of the lake. Here's where they did the feeding of the 5,000. We don't know exactly where it was, but somewhere in here, there's a little, I've been to the little field where they think it was. And all they were supposed to do is get in their boat and go up here to Bethsaida. 2 hours. A 2-hour cruise. And that's what they're going to do. To come up here. John says they were blown over this way towards Capernaum. And here in Mark, they're out in the middle. So the wind is coming in. They want to go this way. They're out here in the middle of the lake. This isn't where they wanted to be. Some of you have been blown where you didn't want to be. Things are happening that are knocking you, and strong forces are coming against you, and you're out of your comfort zone. We're not supposed to be here. This was supposed to be simple. This was supposed to be easy. Now I'm in this storm. It's raging, and I'm out of my comfort zone. If that's how you feel, you're in a storm. You can be assured you're in a storm. D, when there's strong forces against me, tossed around and battered by mega waves. Remember that word heavy was in there. These are mega waves. Some of you have forces stronger than you thought you needed to deal with. And they're just coming against you. Boom, boom. One right after the other. If you feel like strong forces are against you, then you are in a storm. And then E, this is the same thing we talked about last week. I'm giving it all I have, and my result, my reward for giving it all that I've got is I'm further behind than when I started. Again, 2 hours cruise, it's been at least 9 hours now. Minimum of 9 hours that they're fighting these battles. They're giving it all they got. They're professional fishermen. They've been on this lake. They have been in storms before. They know what they're doing. 2 hours is turned into 9, and they're nowhere near where they're supposed to be. That every moment that goes by, they're getting further and further behind. They were in serious trouble, as we just read, rowing hard and struggling against the wind and waves. When you're struggling about it, you're in a storm. So that's what a definition of a storm is. What is Jesus doing for me in the storm? That's point 2 on your outline. What is Jesus up to? Here I am, I'm sinking, I'm going down for the 3rd time. It's coming. What is Jesus up to? A, Jesus is praying for me even before it happens. Who sent them into the storm? Jesus is the one who sent them in the storm. You think he didn't know about the storm? You think he wasn't aware of that? Jesus sent them in there. There's a purpose for this storm, just like in your life there's a purpose for the storm. Jesus sent them in, and he is praying for them. He went up on the mountainside to pray, and part of his prayer was for them as they are going through this huge storm. So Jesus knew it was going to happen. Jesus knows about the storm in your life. He's not surprised. Not once in the Bible you see God going, oh, wow, I didn't see that coming. He knows everything. He knows what's going on. Jesus knows what's going on, and he sent you in. B, Jesus is very aware of your struggle. It says in Mark 6, he saw the disciples straining at the oars. Now, exactly how he saw them, I don't know. Did he see them before it got dark? Did he see them supernaturally? He could see what was going on. How he saw them, I don't know. All I know is he did see them. He sees them, they're straining, they're struggling. Jesus sees you when you're straining and struggling and trying to stay afloat and trying to move forward, and yet you're going backwards as you're trying to go forward and you're battling. Jesus sees every bit of it. He's aware of your struggle and knows that he saw them. Jesus doesn't always answer my cry immediately. Have you noticed that? That Jesus does not show up immediately. I cried out to you. Where are you? Hello? It's getting worse. I'm still here, still in the same rut, battling away. And so it says here, the 4th watch of the night, he went out to them. Well, in Israel, the sun sets about 6 p.m. and rises about 6 a.m. So the first watch is the military term. It's the first 3 hours from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Then the second watch from 9 p.m. to midnight. Third one from midnight to 3. And then the last one from 3 to 6 when the sun comes back up. Jesus shows up in the 4th watch. Excuse me? That's the earliest you can get there? What's wrong with the first watch? When you see us struggling in the first place, you couldn't make the second watch? Well, what are you doing up there on that mountain? The 3rd watch, for goodness sakes. You can't come at midnight or 1 or 2. You've got to wait till 3 o'clock in the morning to show up. Jesus has a reason for not being there right away. It gives them time to try every one of their resources, every one of their options, every one of their skills. They're getting a chance to do it, and they're seeing that it's not working, just as you are battling, using everything you've got, and then some, stuff you didn't even know you had, you're using, and it's still going backwards. It's still going south. It's still going down as they try all of it. But God gives us these little encouragements. Remember those fishermen I was talking about, and they're in the water, and they're floating away. The Christian is there praying, and he sees his Bible go floating by. Now, I dare you to take your Bible and see if you can get it to float. I bet it'll drop like a rock. It comes floating by. Not only is it floating by, it's open to Isaiah something or other. It's in an article that I have somewhere and can't find it. But Isaiah something, and it's saying to the effect, I will rescue you. Hang on, I will be there. Now, the rescue didn't happen at that moment, but they got the encouragement they needed. Jesus, so many times, he's not there, he hasn't solved it, he hasn't come, he hasn't appeared, but he gives us encouragement along the way. D, when Jesus comes, he reveals something new about himself. Now, I want you to listen closely to this. If you're only going to remember one thing, I want you to remember this thing. Jesus has got you in the trial that you're in right now because he wants to teach you something. He's got you in this battle because there's a side of him that you don't know yet. And this storm will bring out that component of Jesus that you're not aware of. Now, they knew a lot about Jesus. They knew that he could get a lot of fish in a net just like that. We saw that last week. They knew he could heal a blind man. They knew he could feed 5,000. So they know lots of different things about Jesus. But they didn't know he could walk on waters. They weren't aware of that. They didn't know that he could help Peter walk on water. There are things about Jesus you don't know yet. And that's why he's got you in the storm. And that's why he didn't come immediately. And that's why he allowed you to use everything you've got. And then he says, may I step in? May I help? And you'll say, finally, yes, absolutely. We're going to learn something new about Jesus. It says, when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost. So again, they thought it was a phantom. They said and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I. And he's going to show them who this I is. Who is this person? He's going to show them. It is I. Don't be afraid. Have courage and don't be afraid. I'm going to show you something you haven't seen before. Jesus doesn't do miracles to show off. In fact, the only people that see these miracles are the disciples. Wouldn't it have been better to do it in daylight hours where a big crowd could see it and everybody would be aware of it? That's not the goal. The goal is to show them who he is. So he does this in the middle of the night for these disciples as they see him coming, walking on the water. So we saw Jesus' part. Now what is my part? What do I need to be doing in the storm? Paddling the boat didn't work too well. I'm just being blown further the wrong direction. What's the part that I need to play in this? A, on your outline, have courage knowing that Jesus is with me. Jesus said to them, take courage. It's I'm here. When you recognize God's presence, when he manifests himself to you, you get this feeling, I can do anything. Your courage swells up within you and grows. When you're experiencing him next to you, you're so confident that you feel you could climb Mount Everest in shorts and a t-shirt. You just have such confidence when you feel Jesus in his presence. That courage comes up and he encourages you to have it. B, risk taking the next step of faith. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you. See, Peter's feeling it. He's saying, I can do anything. I've done with you. You fed the 5,000. You opened the eyes of the blind. You gave us two boatloads of fish in 10 minutes when we couldn't catch anything in 10 hours. Now he's saying, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, Jesus said. So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. I want to encourage you as God fills you with his Spirit. As you experience the manifestation of Jesus that you've never experienced before, and you feel that courage, you feel the boldness, you feel full of faith, take the next step. Don't just say, wow, that was a nice emotion. I really enjoyed that. That's not why he's given it to you. There's a next step. For some of you, maybe meeting the pastor. That's kind of scary. You know, I'll be there. Mark will be there. Melanie will be there. It'll be kind of scary. I want to encourage you to do it anyway. I want to encourage you to come to the Discovery Bible Study on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. Again, I'll be there. And George will be there. That could be scary. And others will be there. Jim Agony. Take that step of faith and come in. Maybe you haven't taken 101. That may be the risk, is to take 101 or 201 or 301 and take in the others. And take that next step. Risk it. That's what Peter did. He risked taking the next step of faith. He didn't know how it would end up, but it's going pretty good at this point. Meanwhile, when you're taking that step of faith, make sure you keep your eyes focused on Jesus. When Peter looked around at the high waves, he was terrified and began to sink. Save me, he shouted. I think what happened, and this is just a guess, this is just speculation, the Bible doesn't tell us, but so he looked at the highway. How come he's looking at Jesus and doing great? How come all of a sudden, I think doubting Thomas was in that boat going, oh my goodness, Peter, what, do you see the size of those waves? Do you see how that water is roiling? I think Peter got thinking and listening. He said, boy, I better look over at those. Those are kind of high waves. And I think he looked away because other people were saying, what are you doing? Are you nuts? Where do you think you're going? You're not Jesus. But I don't know. I'm just guessing. Something got him. Maybe it was just his own thoughts of, what am I doing? Am I really doing this? And you're going to feel that as you take that risky step. As you go out for the first time to do this or the first time to do that, you're going to have the buyer's remorse where you're going, what have I bought into here? I want to encourage you to take that step and keep your focus on Jesus and watch what happens as you keep that focus there. Fourthly, I want to encourage you to doubt your doubts. You have doubts, and they are to be doubted. You have beliefs, and the reason you have beliefs is so you will believe. And so I want to encourage you in the storm to believe your beliefs. And when those doubts come up, which they will, when they come up, doubt your doubts and believe your beliefs. Look, it says immediately Jesus reached out, and Peter had done a good thing here. He said, Jesus! And he went to the right person, and Jesus grabbed him, reached out his hand, and said, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Doubt your doubts. Believe your beliefs. And watch and see if you don't end up walking on the water. And then, finally, worship God morning, noon, and night. When Jesus climbed into the boat, the wind died down. You're going to see that all the time. And Jesus is waiting for you to invite him, just like last week. He's waiting for you to invite him. In fact, I think it's in John's Gospel. It says, Jesus, no, it's in Mark. Jesus said, they said Jesus was just going to walk by them. Jesus wasn't just going to walk by them. They thought Jesus was going to walk. He's waiting to be invited 20 times in the Gospels. Jesus said, ask me, ask me, ask me. He's waiting to be invited into the boat. It may look like he's going to go right by you and miss you, but as you invite him, he's going to come into the boat. And you're going to see suddenly the wind dies down. I'm sure the disciples are going, is this just me, or did it seem like that storm stopped awfully fast? And so we say there were those who were in the boat who worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. One of my dreams is that someday you guys will come at 10:45 and you'll be here yelling at the worship team, hurry up and start singing the worship. I've got to praise God. I've got miracles. I've got experiences. I've got victories that I want to celebrate and worship Jesus. It is so important to worship him with all your heart. And I encourage you to get here and be on time and belt out every one of those songs with all of your heart and watch how you change as you worship him passionately with all your heart. Share your love with him. They worship him. You are the Son of God. The lyrics we sing are so edifying and upbuilding. I want to encourage you to worship as they did. Now, I left you with our fishermen. They're in a pretty bad predicament. And they're out there floating in different directions. And they're praying. The one Christian who is with them is praying. They've gotten an encouragement. Here comes his Bible. Right after he read that part of the Bible, zoom, the Bible sank right down and was gone. Never saw it again. So meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, there is a young pilot. And he's kneeling on the deck of a Coast Guard cutter ship. He's out there on deployment. And he's praying because his commanding officer had come to him and said, look, we've got a situation, we've got a boat sinking out there, we think it's going to be lost, and we've got 4 fishermen in the water, and if you want, you don't have to, because it's bad weather, first of all. One of the hardest things in the world is to land a helicopter on this little skinny ship that's tossed around like a quart, And you have to get that helicopter just at the right time, so that's why they don't like to land in the middle of a storm. It's easier to do it wrong than it is to do it right. So the officer said, look, you don't have to go, because it's right. You'll have to stop at this island and refuel, and then go way out there, and it's right at the limit, it's right at the range, very tough, and you've got to find them, etc. So you don't have to. So he prayed, and he felt like the Lord said, go, you're to go. So he got his crew member, he got in the helicopter, took off, refueled at the right little island, and then went flying out there as fast as he could, and found the location where the ship went down, but there wasn't anybody around where it went down. So he began looking, and he went in the grid, up one side, then down the other, just working the grid, and finally found the first one. There's an orange suit out there, grabbed him in the water. The diver dives in, grabs the fisherman, puts him in the basket, and up they go. And then we've got to find 3 more. So go back and forth, traveling, looking for the fisherman. There's another one. There's the second one. Good, good. There's 2 more. The diver goes in, grabs him, gets him in the basket, and away they go, back and forth. Look, here's the 3rd one over here. The diver goes in, gets him in the basket, and away they go. Here comes the 4th one, right here. They found him. Good. And so they say, all right, now we can go back. Well, all of a sudden, the fishermen start yelling, you can't leave Joey. I can't remember his name because I couldn't find the article. You can't leave Joey here. There are 4 of you. We've got all 4. No, there are 5 of us. We don't have room for 5. We don't have the weight. We're not allowed to carry that much. You can't leave Joey back here. You've got to get Joey. You've got to get him. Look, I'm running out of fuel. I've got to go. If I don't go, we're all going to go down. Everything is going to go down. You've got to get Joey. Okay, look, I will give you 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We will search. If we don't find him, we've got to go. So here they go, 30 seconds. Don't see any sign of him. Here's a minute already. No sign of him. They're going back and forth. It's a minute and a half. They suddenly find him. There he is. Lower down. In goes the diver, grabs him, gets him in the basket going out. And then they start that trip back, hoping there's enough fuel to make it. And that was the hardest part, the pilot said, because the radio had been on. And all these fishing ships had heard the colossal battle. We don't have enough fuel. We don't have enough time. Yeah, we're going to look anyway. We're going to try. And they heard all that. And so one by one, all these different fishing vessels, FB Maverick would say, thank you, Coast Guard. And then Time Bandit got on there. Thank you, Coast Guard. He said they don't make windshield wipers for your eyes as you're flying your helicopters. All of these folks thank them. Now you say, how do you know all that about that? And you couldn't even find the article. Because that was my brother, Jim, who's 13 months younger than I am right now, who did that. The reason I share that story is because that's what Jesus does for you. He goes back again and again and again and again, reaching out to you, comforting you, carrying you through the storm, doing miracles to help, intervening supernaturally when you need it, teaching you new and different things about who he is. And I want to encourage you to grab a hold of Jesus with all your heart. Have an encounter with him. Don't be satisfied with a little shallow relationship with him. Have a deep encounter with Jesus as you go through the storm. Would you grab this little next step sheet that is inside your bulletin, next to that brochure that you can pass out to folks? And on that slip, there are 5 questions that I hope you put a great big yes next to. The first one says, Lord, remind me that you are very aware of my storms. And put down a big yes to that, because he knows everything about the storm that you're in right now. Secondly, give me the courage to risk